Alright, what is up guys? Welcome back to another video. Hope everyone had a wonderful Mother's Day. If you live in the US, I don't know if it's Mother's Day in other countries, but I thought I'd bring you guys the newest patch tier list. I've been wanting to make videos like this for a while, so if you enjoy this type of content, I'm down to do it for every single new patch if you want to see that. So let me know by liking, subscribing, sharing this with other people. If this video blows up, I'll probably make it into series. World champion, breaks down the new patch and the best Pokemon in it. So without further ado, let's get into it. Obviously at number 1 is Zacian. Braindead broken tier, you can see at the top here. He received no nerfs whatsoever in this patch. I do not know what the developers are doing. So he's as broken as ever. If you've touched Unite in the last few months, you know this Pokemon is not okay. It is not in a balanced spot. I should also mention that this is for competitive, so it's not necessarily a solo queue tier list. This is what Pokemon I think will be the best in competitive, which is draft mode, so it's a bit different. So that's why we have Slowbro number 2 here. I wouldn't have Slowbro this high up in a solo queue tier list, just because defenders and supports tend to be harder in solo queue with the stage that Pokemon Unite is at right now. But yeah, Slowbro, insanely strong. All its moves are strong. Its Unite move is one of the best in the game. If you don't know how good Slowbro is, I'd highly recommend picking it up. Lapras at number 3. I don't think this one needs explanation. It has like one of the shortest Unite moves in the game. It has the strongest moves in the game, some of the best stats in the game as well. Glaceon is actually above Urshifu, which some people might disagree with, but after playing this new patch, this Glaceon buff is cancer. I hate Icicle Spear. It takes no skill. Braindead broken tier, as you can see. And it's also bugged, if you didn't know. So the bug makes it do more damage, basically. I can't really give away what it is. But it's just insanely broken. I put it even above Urshifu, which Urshifu is also insanely broken. Both builds are really broken. It wasn't touched in this patch either. So, I mean, Zacian, Urshifu, Glaceon, some of the strongest Pokemon last patch were not touched. Glaceon was actually buffed, so not really nerfed. So yeah, I don't know what the developers are doing this patch, but this is probably one of the worst patches in Unite in a while. But next we have not balanced here, which I have Zoroark and Dodrio at the top here. They're both speedsters. They're both very annoying. They have really good moves, right? Zoroark is actually a contender to be in Braindead broken because it has a couple bugs with it that make it extremely broken. However, these bugs are actually a little harder to do, so I didn't put it as far up as Glaceon because Glaceon is just bugged. You can't avoid not doing the bug. But Zoroark, you have to intentionally bug abuse. So if people could bug abuse every time, I'd put it above even like Lapras maybe. The bug is pretty broken. But yeah, sorry guys, I can't tell you what the bug is. I don't want to spread information on how to do it. But yeah, Dodrio not bugged. It's just insanely OP Mon. It wasn't touched at all either. Espeon was slightly nerfed, so you can see here. Normally I would have put it in Braindead broken tier, but I was actually playing Espeon on ladder and I felt these nerfs. Normally you were able to like one-shot a lot of squishy Pokemon, which was really annoying for them, but now like they're living on 1 HP every time. Like I remember playing Espeon the other day and I was very frustrated. They were living on 1 HP every time, so you can really feel the nerfs on Espeon. It's still gonna be really good. You can see I still have it way far up, but the nerfs actually did a lot more to it than I thought it would. I actually made a Twitter post about the draft of this tier list and asked people for feedback, and I had Espeon actually above, kind of in the Braindead broken tier, but I changed it down to not balanced after playing the patch a little more, which is why it's good to wait a couple days with these patches. I'm not going to release them immediately, these videos on them, because you have to play the game a bit before you figure out where these Pokemon stand. Trevenant also insanely broken. It wasn't touched at all, which I don't know why. It's one of the most broken Mons still. And going over here, we have Blastoise. So Blastoise actually also is bugged. It was banned in competitive tournaments, which is why you didn't see much Blastoise in the last few months if you follow tournaments. But they unbanned it from tournaments, which is crazy to me because they did not fix the bug. So Blastoise is going to be really broken again. Really, really good. I think most people should know how strong Blastoise is now. Has a really fast Unite move, has really strong moves, is really good with stacking. You know, Slick Spoon made it really good too. The new item's really good on a lot of these special attackers. Delphox, also very broken. It's kind of a little more niche, but I did decide to have it up here because it is the best tank counter in the game. If the enemy team goes like really tanky Pokemon, like they go like Tyranitar, Blastoise, Delphox is the best answer by far. So because it is the best answer to what it does, I have it this far up. If it was into like range Pokemon like Espeon, Mew, I'd rate them way above Delphox, but it's because it's the best tank counter in the game by far that I have it this far rated up. Mew is just literally the most annoying attacker, most versatile attacker. It does everything. It does poke, it does secure. Poke is Solar Beam, secure is Electro Ball. It gets away with Surf. It's just insanely it's even an assassin, right? Like a good Mew player can assassinate some Espeons or Glaceons. So this Pokemon has been strong since release. They've been nerfing it, but it's still really, really strong. So here you'll see it. We actually have a couple of new faces here. So Goodra, I believe, was already strong before the patch. Not like that strong, but it was still very usable, very strong. But they buffed it a fuck ton. The Goodra buffs were huge. They made its Unite move like way faster, which I think is huge for the Pokemon. It's going to be able to Unite move like consistently every time it gets engaged on now, which is, it's just going to do a lot for the tempo of the Pokemon. So after playing it, I believe it's really strong. I remember I was like a level 12 Goodra. I wasn't even fed in levels. I was very weak throughout the game. I was level 12 Goodra by Rayquaza. Didn't get that many levels throughout the game. And after the game, I did 100,000 damage as an under-leveled Goodra. I believe that shows the raw output that this Pokemon can do. It's going to be really strong. Cinderace, also, the buffs were insanely fucking massive. Cinderace is one of those Pokemon I used to point to as being power crept. If you don't know what power crept, it's a league term where Pokemon kind of just get outdated by their moves. So Cinderace, the biggest problem with her was her Unite move did not give Unstoppable like all these other Pokemon. All these other Pokemon we've covered so far give Unstoppable Unite moves. But Cinderace didn't, so it's very easy to cancel her Unite move, which made her dog shit. You had to run full heal on Cinderace so you could get your Unite move off. However, they made the Unite move Unstoppable, which is a change Cinder mains have been asking for a long time. But they also buffed it by like 40 seconds. The Unite move used to take like 130 seconds to charge without farming anything. Now it takes like 89 seconds. It's like almost the same timer as Pikachu, if not the same, I think. So that is an insanely broken buff. I think Cinder's really strong this patch. Not to mention, it's actually a very good Pokemon into like these speedsters like Zoroark, Dodrio. It's very good into them. Even it's pretty okay into Urshifu as well. It does struggle against Glaceon though, which is why I have it this far down. Glaceon's just insanely broken this patch. Buzzwole is a Pokemon that actually has a higher skill curve. So you might not think it's that strong in solo queue, but I believe it's actually very strong in solo queue. It's just a harder Pokemon to play. Not many people have mastered it since it's also a newer Pokemon that's come out. But it's very strong and competitive as a counter. It just has a very strong laning phase. So because it's so strong early game, it can really punish a lot of Pokemon who are weak early game. So like Dodrio, Zoroark, they're not that weak early game, but Buzzwole can really hard punish these Pokemon early game. So it's a great counter into speedsters, especially because it beats them 1v1 later in the game as well. So it's a great pickup in competitive. I think it's pretty strong in solo queue too, just people haven't mastered it. So I would recommend picking up Buzzwole. I can't see it being nerfed because it's not used that much, especially in Japan, because developers tend to do their balance changes off of like Japanese players percentage. But yeah, next is Sylveon, which I think is a pretty strong solo Cubone as well. But yeah, Mystical Fire is a menace. Hyper Voice is actually used a lot in competitive too. This Pokemon has just always been a very good at the top. It's just very annoying, hard to deal with. Has good team fight, has like pretty good secure actually with Hyper Voice. So yeah, Sylveon's always been good. Hasn't been touched in a while. Excuse me. Chandelier is the next one. Chandelier is one I kind of struggled with where to place. I'm still not sure. It could potentially be in the OP tier. I could put it a tier above this. The reason I have it so low right now is I'm not sure yet. We still need to figure out like what Pokemon it can deal with easily, because this Pokemon, don't get me wrong, it does a lot of damage. But does it do enough damage to be broken? I still think it's very good. Like, I have it very high up here on the list. But is it enough damage to be broken? Imprison is an insanely good move too. But how useful will it be in competitive? We'll have to see. The only problem I see it struggle with is it struggles to get away from these speedsters. Like Zoroark Dodrio, they can just dive it really easily and kill it. Whether Chandeliers will be able to live, I'm not sure yet. There might be some outplay potential there. But we'll still need to give it time to see how that matchup goes, which is why I have it this low. But Chandelier has the potential to be like even in Braindead broken category. We'll see. Next is Hoopa. Hoopa has always been very strong in competitive. If you followed our Worlds run, a lot of Asian teams did not run Hoopa. They didn't believe in Hoopa's supremacy. But we ran Hoopa and we destroyed all of them. We swept pretty much every team 2-0. We actually did sweep every team 2-0 except outside of groups. So Hoopa was very strong. None of the teams we faced really played Hoopa except for Nouns, who we played in finals. And Nouns also made it to second place playing Hoopa. And yes, Hoopa was nerfed after Worlds, but they recently buffed it. It's been very, very strong. It's played in a lot of competitive regions. Actually, NA, in North America, it's played the least. So in Europe, they love Hoopa. North Americans, we thought Comfy was extremely broken. We loved the solo queue meta. Sorry if you heard that. That's my cat messing around. But we actually prioritized Comfy over Hoopa. EU prioritized Hoopa over Comfy, and Hoopa was untouched. So Hoopa is still a very strong Pokemon. Same with Eldegoss. Just both these Pokemon have insanely strong early games. So they can snowball the early really well. Hoopa has really good laning phase, and you can port people like 4 people top and just absolutely destroy them through a lane. Eldegoss just is very strong in lane with the slow, does a lot of A press damage. And then I have Blissey here because Blissey is not a strong early game, but they've always been, Blissey hasn't been really touched, and it's always been very strong. You know, the eggs heal a lot. It counters Hoopa with the eggs because you can cancel portals if you're good at Blissey. And the Unite move is one of the strongest in the game. However, it's very slow, so that's why it's this far down. I don't think it's the best support, but it's definitely up there, and there's different situations where you can pick it. We actually have been playing Blissey Defender a lot, and we'll sometimes pick it over Tree in competitive. So if you want to go look at when we did that, I've posted videos of our recent April finals games where we won versus Amaterasu 2-0 in grand finals, and I believe we did pick Blissey in some of those games. So you can go check those out and see why Blissey is so strong. Next we have the annoyingly good tier, and I have Charizard here because Charizard is very, very strong, I think, if you can get the Unite move off, and it's not countered in Unite. But there's some funny interactions because for some reason they decided to make it hindrance resistance, which means like a Machamp can actually submission you and like flip you over during your Unite move as Charizard when you're in it. So some crazy interactions like that make it a bit worse. I think Charizard would be probably in the not balanced tier, if not Braindead broken tier, if it still had the old Unite move with Unstoppable. I think Charizard would be very good now, but hindrance resistance Unite move is not as good anymore, unfortunately. There's definitely some counters you can play to it, and it's always struggled with getting the Unite move off. So yeah, Charizard very good, but just annoyingly good. Same with Sableye. It's definitely not as strong as it was on release because it was utterly broken on release, and it has a lot of uses in competitive. I think Sableye in solo queue is insanely broken. Not really solo queue, but duo queue. If you're playing Sableye duo queue with like a Sableye and then the other guy's playing Zacian, it's impossible to beat. I'm never beating that solo queue or duo queue as a solo queue player. I faced like duo queue players like that, and it's just impossible, right? Like they recognize my name, the Sableye comes and stuns me, the Zacian comes and one-shots me, it's over. There's no counterplay at all. Sableye is very strong in like duo, trio queue. Even solo queue, I think it's pretty good. But in competitive, it's a bit more niche. It's still annoyingly good. What teams like to do is they play score comp with it, so they'll draft like these speedsters. Even Blue Urshifu is played as a speedster, and with Sableye, they'll draft it because they're kind of more squishy. So they don't need healing because the healing doesn't help them that much anyway since they're more squishy, and they just score the whole time. They play score comp, they score, they get like 300 point leads. we had to face this against Spinal, and it was very annoying. We were like 300 points behind, almost lost in qualifiers. And I'll be posting those games soon, actually, if you want to check them out. I'm covering the team YouTube games next. But then after that, I'll be posting our games versus Spinal. So check that out. Subscribe to the channel so you can stay tuned for that video coming out soon. But next I have Clefable. Clefable is just very good because there's a lot of dash Pokemon like Zoroark or Shifu in the meta right now that are at the top. Even Glaceon has dashes if you go Icy Wind, stuff like that. So Gravity is very good into them. Moonlight, just very good healing. The Unite move, very good secure. You get it very fast. So it's in this annoyingly good tier where it can be played as a counter. And you can see it's above Lax here because Clefable actually counters Lax. You put these Gravities on the objective when they're getting low, and literally those Snorlax or like the Zoroark won't be able to secure at all. They can't dash through it. They'll get stunned if they try to secure. So it actually makes your secures a lot better against these dash Pokemon. A very good counter pick. Even against Talonflame, as you can see later down the list. Talonflame can't even land down and fly when Gravity's put down. So it makes securing very good with the Unite move that has a good secure. So it's a very good niche Pokemon. It's annoyingly good. It's not that broken. There's better supports in it. But it's a good counter pick support. Even when you're not counter picking, it's pretty good. So Snorlax, it's very good because of the early game. Snorlax has the best early game out of any defender. Better than Slowbro, better than Trevenant. Slowbro does have slightly better secure in lane, but Snorlax can just make any lane viable, right? So if you're playing against an Espeon, what a lot of teams will do is they'll draft this Snorlax to counter the Espeon early, because Espeon isn't that strong at level 3. It's once it hits level 4. So you can watch a bunch of competitive games. Teams will draft like Snorlax Mew, and they'll destroy the Espeon lane because Snorlax Mew will take every single farm early against the Espeon. The Espeon cannot hit level 4. So that's why Snorlax is in this annoyingly good tier. It's the best defender early game. So yeah, the block is very good late. If you can hit level 13 on Snorlax, block is the best move in the game. Snorlax level 13 is so broken. You don't hit it that often, but yeah, this one is very good. Wigglytuff is next. This might be an unpopular opinion. Wigglytuff, kind of, a lot of people seem to underrate it, think it's bad. But Cute Charm has been the most broken passive in the game for the entirety since its release. It's still the most annoying passive. It will piss anyone off when you play against it enough. It has a very strong early game as well, very good team fight, and they actually buffed it recently, which most people still don't remember, where they made the Unite move very fast. So it has very quick Unite move charge now, and it does fall off late game, but it's still a great early game Pokemon, and it counters some of these speedsters like Zoroark, Dodrio, and others. Cute Charm is just very good into it with Scene. Wigglytuff, very underrated right now. Next I have Talonflame. It's actually not very used in North America, but in Europe they love Talonflame. In Japan they also love Talonflame. I think it's pretty good. You just go fly, you run around the map scoring. It's very good with the double speedster comp. But in North America, teams have tried to use it and they failed. So I personally do not think it's that strong. I still have it in the annoyingly good tier. Don't get me wrong. I still think it's usable. It's pretty good. This is still like above average, you know, compared to other Pokemon. So it definitely has some uses. It's very good into like Espeon, Mew, some of these spellcasters, right? But I believe it loses the 1v1s to the other speedsters, to Urshifu. So if the other team drafts into the Talonflame, you won't be able to play the game, I think, which is the issue with it. I remember watching, I think GT, if you know them, they're kind of like a top 6 team in North America. Very popular last year too. They did well, and they drafted Talonflame, I believe. Maybe it's another team, and I watched the Talonflame just get chased around by the Urshifu until eventually it died. It did nothing. So it definitely takes some skill to use, but I'm not a big believer in the Talonflame. Next we have Garchomp here. Garchomp is just a very strong overall Pokemon. It's very solid. If you want someone solid in the top lane, they're not going to lose lane too hard. They have good A press, you know, just overall does everything that you want Garchomp. It definitely has good matchups. It's good into, it's pretty broken in the 1v1s, just like A pressing you really fast, which is why I have it in the annoyingly good. Ninetales recently got a buff, and hold on, let me get some water. So Ninetales recently got a buff, and I think it's pretty good. They buffed the Unite move timer, so it's gonna be able to Unite move a lot more in the games. Blizzard actually does a ton of damage now. I was really impressed with how much damage it does, especially now that you have the option to go Slick Spoon. You can go triple damage. I think it's pretty good. I might have it rated a little too high, a little too low. We're not sure yet. It's still hard to tell what it's good into. Like, could Mew and Espeon just be better attackers in the lane still? Probably. So we still have to see when we want to use it. Still not sure on how good it will be in competitive. In solo queue, I think it could actually be pretty good. So Ninetales is still wild card. It's kind of a guess on the placement right now. So now we have Scissor / Scyther. The tier list I used didn't separate them, but I think it's actually pretty fitting because I think they're similarly placed now. Because Scissor got a buff. Scissor's actually, like, I played it and it seems pretty strong. It's pretty good. The problem is there's a lot of counterplay to it. Bullet Punch is just a really finicky kind of bad move. It has bad targeting on it. If you played enough, you'll understand what I mean. Bad targeting, it can be easily dodged. And Scissor kind of needs to keep it stacked. It needs to keep the Bullet Punch stacked to be good. Scyther has always been good. Spammable Unite. They didn't nerf it. I still think it's really strong in like solo queue, stuff like that. In competitive though, there's just better speedsters like Dodrio, Zoroark. They're safer. You'll die less often. For Scissor, might as well play like Urshifu, Garchomp. They're probably better. So I think there could be some niche scenarios where you use it. Still not sure on there. It might have it a little too low. I think it's pretty high. Like, I think this is a good placement for it. I'm concerned about having it a little too low. We'll see as the meta progresses. Venusaur, always been very strong. Hasn't received any changes recently. The problem is it gets countered by Pokemon like Delphox. Buzzwole destroys it. Like, a lot of these, Cinder destroys it too. So a lot of the meta kind of destroys Venusaur right now, which is why it's kind of further down this list. Even Gardevoir destroys Venusaur, but I put Venusaur a little above Gardevoir because I believe Delphox does Gardevoir's job just a little better. The difference between Gardevoir and Delphox, how you pick, they're both kind of the tank counters in the game. You draft them to counter like Tyranitar, Blastoise, Snorlax, these tanky comps, Goodra. But the problem with Gardevoir is it doesn't have the mobility that Delphox has, right? Delphox has very easy to hit moves if you go Fire Spin, or it has the mobility with Flame Charge. Gardevoir doesn't have any mobility. It does a lot of damage, and it has a better early game than Delphox. But I don't think that excuses that Delphox is just a better Pokemon later in the game. Lucario is kind of, it's been nerfed to oblivion since its release, really. And it's just, I mean, it's still good, don't get me wrong. It's just, I almost think it might never see its former glory. Like, they've already milked Lucario. They've released a ton of skins. If you're following the trends, like, they buffed Glaceon because it's getting a skin. So Lucario already has like 3 like $40 skins. I can't see it getting another skin. It probably won't be buffed anytime soon. And as it is now, it's kind of weak, still usable. But we have the best Lucario player in the world on my team, Overlord. And we did not play Lucario like once in April finals when we won. So Lucario just, there's better picks now. If you want to play Lucario, you want to play like a secure Pokemon, like Dodrio is almost a better secure than Power Up Punch at this point. Like, just play like Blastoise or like Zoroark, Dodrio, Urshifu. Like, one of these Pokemon are going to be better than Lucario. Decidueye is actually very, very strong if you get stacks in. I think this Pokemon is very strong at what it does. It's actually used a lot in competitive and counter comps. When the enemy team doesn't, you can kind of last pick Decidueye where the enemy team doesn't have counters to the Decidueye. Because Decidueye gets easily countered by these Pokemon like Talonflame, like Zoroark. But the enemy team doesn't have them. It's actually very hard to reach this Decidueye. So it can be used very well in competitive. In solo queue even, like, you're not always going to face these Pokemon that are going to kill you instantly. But you probably will. So I think it's kind of coin flip in solo queue how good it is. But Decidueye, especially if it gets its stacks in, you run attack weight, it'll do a fuck ton of damage. It has really good stats for the stacking. Different Pokemon do better with stacking versus others, and Decidueye has really good ratios with the stacking. So run attack weight on it. If you get your 6 stacks on attack weight, you're going to do insane amounts of damage. I think it's very good at what it does. It's just kind of a niche scenario. Cramorant has been banned in competitive and is still banned because of a game-breaking bug. This bug, I believe, makes it actually pretty good in solo queue when it happens. The problem is it's kind of hard to replicate. It's just game-breaking when it does. You basically one-shot people when it happens. So it's hard to replicate, which is why I have it down here. Cramorant hasn't been used in competitive in a long time. So this is kind of just me guessing where it is. It could be higher placement than this. I'm not sure where it would place. People would probably play dive with it. But I'm thinking, like, we already have Espeon, we already have Mew, we already have Sylveon, Delphox. Like, all these Pokemon kind of just are better than Cramorant. And Ninetales recently got buffed, so if Ninetales is better than Cramorant, it's just kind of doomed. Cramorant does have its Unite move, which its Unite move has always been really good. It has Dive, which is very good movement. So it's still a good Pokemon. I'm just not sure how good it would be in competitive. It would have to have specific matchups in the top of the meta that it's good against, which I just can't see, you know? Dive just isn't fast enough. I still feel like you'll just die to Dodrio, you'll die to Zoroark, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe a good Cramorant can live against them, and maybe it should be higher placed. But that's where I think it should be placed right now. Mamoswine is actually very good in solo queue. I think if you're playing solo queue, Mamoswine would be way higher than this placement. However, there's just better Pokemon. Mamoswine, just what it suffers from is it's a defender Pokemon, right? So you have to play it in lane, but it has abysmal secure. Its secure is just dog shit. It has no secure. So you can be winning the A presses, right? You can be winning lane. Oh, they're low health. But unless you kill them, they're probably going to get all the last hits over you. And if you can't punish them hard enough, you can't kill them, and they still get last hits, then you're going to lose lane. And Mamoswine's just useless. You might as well play Snorlax at that point. But in solo queue, it's a different story. Lanes aren't as competitive, so you can easily like get these kills on people. They don't know Mamoswine's damage. And that's where I think Mamoswine shines. However, in competitive, unfortunately, it's just not as good. So here's the biggest change in this list. Comfy, probably in the last patch, I would have put it in Braindead Broken. But on this newest patch, I'm putting it in Mediocre. And this is more of a guess, but obviously these Yumi Pokemon, if you play League of Legends, you'll know what I'm talking about. Like, these Yumi type characters that you can't kill unless you kill the person they're on are always going to be annoying. They're always going to feel strong. But in solo queue, it might still be strong. It might still feel strong. But in competitive, it just it has an abysmal laning phase. So its laning phase is god awful compared to these other supports. Probably the worst laning phase out of any support in the game. And it used to make up for that with how strong it was later in the game. And the problem is they nerfed Magical Leaf, which once you hit level 12, Magical Leaf was one of the strongest moves in the game. They nerfed it. They nerfed the healing too. Like, all the healing by a fuck ton. They nerfed the healing. Like, it's almost like twice as less the healing that it used to do. So I'm pretty sure Comfy is not going to be good in competitive. It's just also with like these score comp type speedster things, Comfy was actually kind of bad into it because you're basically playing with 4 players on the map, which makes it hard to cover your goal zones. They're going to get a huge point lead. So it's just not worth, like, it has too many drawbacks now, and the upsides used to make up for it tenfold. I thought Comfy was the best support last patch, but there's also so many negatives to playing Comfy that you have to work around, and I just don't think it's worth it now. I think Comfy is probably the worst support. I think I have it the worst rated support, yes. Mime, technically a support, but we'll get to that. It's more of a defender in competitive. But yeah, next I have Tyranitar. Tyranitar is just like Decidueye. It's very good in these niche scenarios where the enemy team just somehow drafted a comp that's terrible into it, right? If you have last pick and you can pick Tyranitar, they have like a Pikachu, like a Talonflame, like these Pokemon that can't kill Tyranitar, then Tyranitar is gonna thrive. The problem is there's too many counters. Like, Urshifu beats it. Like, all of these Pokemon at the top will beat Tyranitar in a 1v1. Lapras, Station, even like a Slowbro, Tyranitar can't kill. Glaceon will beat it. Espeon actually fucks it. Like, Tree will beat it even if you're like 2 levels down. All these Pokemon beat Tyranitar. But there's still certain matchups that Tyranitar can be good into. The problem with Tyranitar is it's so weak early. Once you hit level 9, it's good. But 1 through 8 is just so weak that, especially in competitive, against teams who know how to punish your early game, you're not going to hit Tyranitar until like until like 5 minutes. You're not going to hit level 9. and that's just not worth it. Just play a different Pokemon that does the same thing. Blastoise does the same thing as Tyranitar, except better. Just play Blastoise. Aegislash. I'm actually a big fan of Aegislash. I think it's very, very good depending on the comp. The problem is there's too many counters. For example, Tyranitar hard counters Aegislash. Gardevoir destroys Aegislash. Urshifu destroys Aegislash. There's too many counters in the meta right now to Aegislash. Yes, it can be good in niche scenarios, just like Tyranitar, just like Decidueye. But I have it slightly rated worse than them because you're just probably going to pick other Pokemon, because Aegislash usually played in the top lane jungle. There's just going to be better Pokemon options to pick, right? Like, why would you pick Aegislash when you can pick Urshifu, Glaceon, right? It just doesn't make sense. Why would you pick Aegislash in the top lane when you can play Buzzwole, you can play Dodrio, Zoroark, these broken Pokemon? Absol. I would actually have Absol a lot lower if it did not counter certain matchups. So Absol, if you did not know, is actually a hard counter into Zoroark. So Absol is very good into Zoroark. You might see it a lot in competitive into Zoroark and think, oh, it might be good. But no, they're playing it for these score comps for to counter the Zoroark. I don't actually think it's good. It's a good option in these comps, but it's very niche. If you can get like Talonflame, even like Talonflame would probably do better than Absol in most of these comps. It's good into Dodrio, Zoroark. That's about it. I'm not a big fan of Absol. I think it can be good in these 1v1 scenarios. The problem is the scaling. Once it hits late game at 2 minutes, it falls off hard in its stats, right? So Absol has always been a Pokemon where you need to keep your lead. You can't die and give them experience back. You die once, they're getting all their levels off you dying once. So you can't die a single time as Absol in 10 minutes. And in this meta, I think that's highly unrealistic. You're going to die at least once, and once you do, the game's going to be extremely hard. If you're an Absol player, you're an Absol one trick that cannot die at all, Absol actually might be pretty good. But I just don't think it's feasible. The best Absol player in the world, I think, is probably Nudo, and Nudo can barely pull it off. In his prime, he could barely pull it off, where he didn't die on Absol when it was broken. And that's the only Absol player I've ever seen that's able to not die, and so hard to kill. It was so hard to kill Nudo on Absol. But Absol, in this current meta, especially when it's not as strong, it takes like 2,000, 1,000 games at least of Absol, I think, to be good at not dying on it, just because it's such a hard Pokemon to figure out when you can or cannot go in. I just think it's too hard. Mime is another Pokemon that's extremely hard. It could be good if you're like a one-trick Mime player. Like Bruv is the best Mime player in the world. He's going to play Mime because he's very good at it. So Mime can be good if you're really good at it. Let me get some water again. But Mime is very hard. So if you're not good at Mime, you're going to do abysmal on it. It's not going to help at all. I think I'm very good at Mime, and I don't think I'm good enough at Mime to play it over these other defenders. Like, I might play it over Mamoswine, but over Snorlax or Tree or Slowbro, I would never play Mime. I would pick Blissey before Mime in most scenarios. And I think I'm really good at Mime, but Bruv is really probably the only Mime that is good enough at Mime to make it slightly work. I still don't think he's making it look that strong. It's okay. But yeah, Mime can be usable. It's hard, which is why it's this far down. There's very few players who can play it to the utter mastery of what it needs. And it's just not worth it. There's not enough payback, I think, for how good you need to be at Mime. Pikachu it's actually pretty good. I have it this far down because I just believe there's better options in the world. Like Ninetales is probably a better Pikachu now. And just Espeon, Glaceon, these Pokemon you probably want to pick over Pikachu. But Pikachu has a few uses. It's good into the speedsters like Zoroark, Dodrio, which is why it's above some of these other Pokemon down here. I do believe it can be used in competitive. It's still usable. This tier is called the mediocre tier, so it still can be used sometimes, but just sometimes, and I just think it's not a good pick. You'll probably want to pick something else. But if you're good at Pikachu, you can play it. It's the same with Machamp. I think Machamp is actually one of the hardest Pokemon to play. You can get good Unite moves off as Machamp, don't get me wrong, even if you don't play it. But I think it's one of the hardest Pokemon in the game to be consistent at. You have to play so much Machamp to be consistent at. Still, like, the best players in the world I've watched play Machamp, and they fail at being consistent at it. I still haven't seen a single Machamp who can be consistent at it every game. And if you can be consistent with Machamp with the Unite moves, then I think it could be okay. But I think it's extremely hard. Still can be playable in competitive. Just this is why I have it so low, because the skill cap for it is so high, and I just think it's not worth it. Just play like Urshifu over Machamp, bro. Just play like Zacian, play like Lapras. They're gonna be better than Machamp anyways. Yeah. So in the bad tier, I have Greedent, and I think all these Pokemon are bad. You shouldn't play them in competitive. Greedent can be used in like solo queue. I think Greedent, Dragapult. So Greedent, Dragapult, and Gengar are actually pretty okay in solo queue. Azumarill as well. Duraludon and Crustle are actually usable in solo queue as well. However, this is competitive. They just simply don't make the cut. The reason Greedent is above all these Pokemon is because Greedent can be pretty annoying with the Invade. You can play score comp with it. It's actually pretty annoying, and it does good damage still. It's not a bad Pokemon, even though I have it in the bad tier. It's not that bad. Dragonite still has the insane secure, still has a really good early game. Most people don't realize, like, Dragonite 1 through 7 compared to other Pokemon is really good. Once you hit that level 8 though, it kind of just falls off. It just falls off late game pretty hard with its damage. Dragapult, very good in solo queue. I think it's just too easily countered in competitive. Cinderace is just the better Dragapult. If you want to play Dragapult, just play Cinderace. It has better mobility, more damage. Dragapult is good with resets, but are you realistically going to get these resets before you die in competitive against players who know to target you? No, probably not. If you guys follow the team, you know, like, Kyrios and I are on the world champion team, and Kyrios plays Dragapult for our team. And I've actually faced him in solo queue. I was playing solo queue, or like with the 5-stack maybe, but a random 5-stack. And I faced Kyrios playing Dragapult, and I was playing Mime. This was back when Mime was good. And I literally solo killed him as the Mime because none of his team helped him. He literally couldn't do anything. He didn't do enough damage. I just walk up to him as Mime, I confusion him, and I kill him. I just think, unless you have a team that pockets you, Dragapult's just not good. And if you want a team that pockets you, just play like Venusaur or Blastoise. They're better with the pockets than Dragapult. Serena's the same. Serena needs a pocket to work in competitive, and I still think the Blissey Serena combo is pretty good. It's still usable. It's just there's better Pokemon. Like, just play Aegislash at that point even. It's probably better than Serena. There's just better Pokemon that do the same thing as Serena. A Hyper Carry top like Zoroark is just better. Dodrio is just better. And they do more across the map as well. And the problem with Serena is you have to hit level 6. So from 1 through 5, you're actually kind of weak. Probably one of the weaker early games out there. It's just not worth it. Azumarill is actually the opposite of Serena. I think Azumarill's very strong early game, but the late game is just too abysmal. I think it hard falls off late game. You're going to do nothing at 2 minutes. You're going to do nothing after the first 3 minutes, basically. There's a lot of Azumarill fans out there, so I'm not going to go in depth on this. You can play Azumarill if you want. I think it's just not good. Greninja is just, you heard me use the word power crept before. I think it's just power crept nowadays. Like, to give you the, like, why? Level 1 Zacian has better stats than level 7 Greninja. Level 1 Zacian literally has like the same stats as a level 7 Greninja. Greninja's just power crept in this meta. I'm a fan of its moves and its kits. It's just not good unless it gets a buff. Gengar is actually, I think Gengar is a menace in solo queue. It's really good in solo queue. Just in competitive, people are going to know how to dodge these skill shots, how to counter Hex, and you're going to do nothing as Gengar. It's just, it's not that, it's never been good in competitive. It's always been a kit more geared towards solo queue than competitive. So Crustle is at the top of never pick these because it actually has a really good matchup into Espeon. And if this was last patch, I might actually put it above Azumarill here in bad, because it actually counters Espeon. You go Rock Tomb Crustle with the wall, and you wall off the Espeon, and they're fucked. They're trapped, right? Yes, they have a eject button, but they can only do that once. You just wall them again, they're fucked. But the problem is that Espeon is not as good in this meta. I think you're not going to see as many Espeons, and if it only counters that Pokemon, it's not that good. Crustle, don't get me wrong, it's good in solo queue, so don't worry, you can still play in solo queue. This is a competitive tier list, but it's just not getting competitive. Just play Snorlax or Tree or Slowbro. Duraludon is just dog shit. I think it's bad in solo queue. It's like okay if you want to play it, but I still think it's dog shit. It's bad in competitive. Just play Cinderace if you want to play Duraludon. Cinderace is a better Duraludon. Zeraora is like all the speedsters are better than Zeraora 2. If you want to play Zera, just play Talonflame. It does more damage. It has a better kit. Just play Absol over Zera, seriously. Zera is just not good. Yes, it's good at the 1v1s. You can go like Spark Wild Charge and say, "Oh, like I'm killing them 1v1 though," but that's all you're doing, and that's only if you had a good early game. It's just not good. I don't think it's good. Worst Pokemon in the game right now. Don't get me wrong, I was actually a Zeraora main when I started out playing. I just think it's too shit. Like don't play it right now. It hurts my heart that it's so shit, but I think it's the worst Pokemon in the game. But Duraludon's definitely a contender. So now we're gonna go to the battle item tier list. In competitive. So if this was solo queue, I would actually put Potion in the S tier along with Eject Button and X Speed. But Eject Button, X Speed, just Eject is the best battle item in the game in fights. If you're a MOBA player, you know why a Flash is so good. You can do so much with this one thing. It's so good. 70-second cooldown, not bad. X Speed is like, it's a shorter cooldown, and it does kind of the same thing as Eject Button throughout the game. It's a lot worse than the team fights, but it gives you so much tempo is what we call it, where you can rotate across the map so fast. It's really good in team fights as well. It was the most broken item, but they nerfed it, so it's still really good. Full heal, they nerfed it as well, but I still think it's A tier because it's the only item that does what it does. It's a must run on Pokemon like Dodrio Zoroark. You have to run it. So it's just very good. Potion is actually very good, I think, as well. And this is kind of the territory where those three, like Eject Button, X Speed, Full Heal, they're the most played in competitive. These other items are not played that much in competitive. You see a lot of Potion and X Attack sometimes, but it's very niche when you run it. You don't want to run Potion and X Attack all the time. Potion's actually going to be used a lot less on this patch. It was used in North America a lot because if you have a Comfy on your team and you're like the defender player or something, you don't have consistent healing compared to like Eldegoss, compared to Blissey, Hoopa. But we believe that Comfy made up for it with what it did. So when you're like the defender, you're going to have to play Potion to have your own healing. Otherwise, the other team probably has healing because they probably drafted one of those healers I talked about and you have a Comfy. So Potion was actually a necessity there, in my opinion. But in this patch, not so much. Without Comfy, you're going to see a lot less Potion. X Attack, I believe, could be good on like Pokemon like Cinder, stuff like that. It just doesn't do enough for what it is. These other items are just going to give you way more value. I'm always underwhelmed when I run an X Attack. I think, oh, you know what? Why don't I try X Attack with this like certain build I want to run? And I'm always extremely underwhelmed. It doesn't perform up to my expectations. I almost like wished I had like Eject Button or X Speed most of those times. So yeah, Slow Spoke. It was used on Comfy and some other supports sometimes. Goal Getter, it's used a lot in Japan and like score comps and stuff. Us like North Americans and in Europe, we've never been a fan of it really in competitive, never ran it. Fluffy Tail is just shit. Don't run Fluffy Tail. If you want to run Fluffy Tail, just run X Attack. Trust me, just run X Attack. So next we have the held items. EXP share. This is like probably the most unpopular opinion when it comes to solo queue players. They think EXP share is dog shit. It does nothing. Trust me, it does so much. Even if you're playing solo queue, please run EXP share. It's the best item in the game by far. It gives you 300 health. Like it's a lot better. Like the passive stats are already better than a lot of these items here. And just for what it does, it's so good. If you just go to UniteDB, look up UniteDB, and you read what EXP share does, it's the best item in the game by far. Focus Band, a very good item. I don't think I need to explain it. It gives you thousands of health every 60 seconds. Very good. Attack Weight, very, very good. Makes you do a fuck ton of damage on a lot of Pokemon. It's a must run on a lot of Pokemon like Dodrio, Zoroark, stuff like that. Muscle Band, also must run The theme of Muscle Band is very versatile. You can run it on like every Pokemon, including special attackers. You can run it on like Ninetales. You can run it on Glaceon. It's just such a good item, and that's why it's in the S tier. Buddy Barrier as well. You can run it on any Pokemon. It's a little grief on some Pokemon, but I do a lot of Metafy coaching. You can check out the link in the description for that. And what I always tell my students is just get like Buddy Barrier, Muscle Band, Focus Band. You can literally run these 3 items on every Pokemon in the game. So you might as well upgrade those first. Of course, if you already know what Pokemon you want to main, you should upgrade the specific items good for those. But when they're still figuring out their mains, they don't know which to go for, these 3 go-to items you can run on any Pokemon. It's so versatile. And Buddy Bear is just still really good. Gives like 400 health, a huge shield. It's a really good support item. You want to run it on almost every support and defender. In A tier, we have Slick Spoon. I was actually pleasantly surprised that one of the newer items was up this far, but Slick Spoon is so good. It's actually insane how good it was. I don't think anyone expected how good it would be as a special attack item. And I'm really glad because I wanted a good special attack item. I'd look at my builds for like certain special attackers and I'd be like, something's just missing here, right? Like Espeon before Slick Spoon came out. I'm like, do I really want to run like Shell Blow or Amp? Like something's just missing. Like I don't want to run stacking, right? Like you run Choice Specs, Wise Glasses, what's the third item? Well, now it's really easy. You just run Slick Spoon. Bam. There you go. It's super good item. Razor Claw is like, it just helps you do so much damage. It's so good on certain Pokemon like Urshifu and Dodrio. Just the damage numbers are insane. You should definitely run it on those Pokemon if you're griefing. And just the fact that it slows them as well. Slows have always been good in games like this. It makes the enemy Pokemon easier to hit once you slow them. Score Shield, self-explanatory. It's always been good. Rapid Fire Scarf, the other new item, actually pleasantly surprised. It's not quite as good as Muscle Band, but it's really good. If you want to like auto attack really fast, you run Muscle Band, Rapid Fire Scarf. It has a lot of uses. It's very good. Does good damage numbers too. Weakness Policy, also good damage numbers. All these other items are kind of self-explanatory. Scope Lens, very good on certain Pokemon, especially Urshifu, because Urshifu has surefire crits. So if you didn't know this, Urshifu Wicked Blow, the middle part of it is a guaranteed crit. So Scope Lens increases the amount of damage your crits do. It's very good on Urshifu. Same thing with Blue Urshifu. On the 3rd hit of your Surging Strikes, it's a guaranteed crit. Scope Lens is very good with that. So certain Pokemon like that, Scope Lens is very good on. Eos Cookie is kind of a bait. Like you might think, oh, it's a stacking health item. It must be good. No, it's not. You can run it sometimes. I only like to run it on Tree really in competitive. I actually love running Eos Cookie on Speedsters and Solo Queue. I'll run like Eos Cookie, Attack Weight Zoroark, and you're impossible to kill. It's really fun. But in competitive, it's just not worth it. A lot of teams will punish your stacks, so you're usually giving up like a lot of farm, a lot of experience, a lot of points for these stacks. And Eos Cookie stacking, just not worth it. Just run Focus Band. A fully stacked Eos Cookie will give you 1200 health, right? Passively. But Focus Band, when you're like level 13 Blastoise, will give you like 5000 health on its own. So just run Focus Band. It's going to be better than Eos Cookie in these team fights. Wise Glasses, it's a good item, worse than Special Attack Specs, but it's okay. You're gonna want to run like Wise Glasses, Choice Specs, Slick Spoon on a lot of attackers. It's just, if there is a better item, if you think you could get stacks on Special Attack Specs, it's gonna be better, right? Sometimes you even run Energy Amp over it, so it's just not that good. It's just the only item that does what it does, just straight special attack. That's why you run it sometimes, but I'm just not a fan of it, you know? Floatstone, it's actually pretty good on Speedsters, but that's it. Like, that's the niche. It's good on Speedsters, maybe like Decidueye, it can be used too. I'm a fan of Rapid Fire Scarf on Decidueye over Floatstone. Shell Bell, I think Shell Bell is just the most shit special attack item. I was debating putting it in F tier. Energy Amp is just going to be better. Slick Spoon, always better. Just don't run Shell Bell. Assault Vest is at the top of F tier because it's the most usable of these, but I recommend never going these. You just never go any of these items here. Like, you might think, oh, Drain Crown. No, no. Do not go Drain Crown, okay? Let me tell you, I wanted to believe in Drain Crown. I was the biggest Drain Crown enthusiast copium. I saw the numbers and I was like, you know what? I don't care. I ran it in pro scrims. We did pro scrims. I ran it in a tournament even. And I compared the numbers, right? You actually heal more when you do not run Drain Crown. Because a lot of Pokemon have passive lifesteal already. You do not need Drain Crown. And these items like Rapid Fire Scarf will give you more damage, so you will get more lifesteal than if you ran Drain Crown. So you're actually going to get less healing. I ran Drain Crown on Charizard, did like 100k damage, I got like 10k healing. That's it. You run Drain Crown on Charizard, you'll do more damage first off, but even if you do 100k, you're healing even more than if you ran Drain Crown. You're going to heal like 15k. It's stupid how bad they made this item, so it's not even like worth it to consider sometimes, but it's just terrible. Trust me. Do not run Drain Crown. Run a different item, like run Attack Weight, run Rapid Fire Scarf. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video. It's a long one. I wanted to cover the items because it's my first tier list, so let me know if you enjoyed it. Tier list video in a while. But future tier list videos will just be the Pokemon and not the items. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. I'll be posting the Team YouTube game soon if you're following that series, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.